Hey there, beautiful people. This is Mark Siegel, your resident ed tech specialist, here for another Google Forms tips and tricks in this playlist. So this one, let's talk about turning our Google form that we've created into a quiz so that it gets graded for me. So because remember, work smarter, not harder, people. Okay, so the best answer for grading purposes is multiple choice, check boxes, etc. Things that have one answer and one answer only. If you have something that is a long answer or a short answer, the Google form has a harder time grading those because they have to be exactly the same. I mean, punctuation, capitalization, spelling, everything has to be identical. So it's a little bit tougher to do that. However, you can manually grade them later, and so it's not terrible. It's just not as easy if you use simple things like multiple choices and check boxes. But let's talk about turning this into a quiz. So this was the beginning of the year assessment I used in the last video, and so I've got some multiple choice questions and some short answer stuff in here, so let's quizify it. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to click on the gear. When I click on the gear, on the right hand side it says quizzes. I'm going to turn this into a quiz. So I'm going to make this quiz. Now there's a couple of options that pop up that were not available there previously and are not available in personal accounts. This is only for a Google Apps for Education or enterprise situation. So number one, if you have Chromebooks or school-based devices, you can use locked mode. Locked mode prevents people from using this on a non-school device, which means no cell phones, no personal devices, no desktops, things like that. Chromebooks are it. It locks it down. And what it does is it stops the students from opening other tabs once they've opened this one. So it prevents them from cheating. Doesn't stop them from cheating, but it like makes it harder. So you can turn on lock mode right here. Now, releasing the grade. Releasing the grade works great if you want them to see the responses and see the answers right away. However, if you are concerned that they're going to share those answers with other people, then I would click later after manual review. Now, what do you want them to see when you're all done? You can show them what questions they got wrong, what the correct answers are to those wrong questions, and what the point values are for those. You can turn any one of these off. So if you just wanted them to see what they got wrong, then you might only check the top one and uncheck the bottom one, or only point values, etc. So they can see the grade, but not all of all the different parts of the quiz. Especially if you're going to use the same quiz from block to block, you may not want to release this until everyone has taken it, or for absent students. The other thing I want you to do is, on general, limit this to one response. Otherwise, what happens is students can take this quiz multiple times. So they might take it the first time to be serious, and then the second time, or I'm sorry, the first time quickly to see what all the questions are, and then take it a second time so that now that they have the questions, they can resubmit with all the right answers. So I wouldn't do that. So limit this to one response, and let's click Save. Okay, now that I am grading this, when I click on my section, in individual questions, you'll notice it says Answer Key. If you click Answer Key, it tells you, it automatically defaults to 1 point. Now, I don't want this question graded, so I'm going to make this 0 point question because that's just my block A, block 1, block 2 question. And now I click Done. So you have to click Answer Key each time in order to identify what the answers are. So in this question, I have a paragraph. It's going to be worth more than 1 point. So let's make it worth 5 points because it's a paragraph response. Okay. Now, I'm not going to leave any feedback, and there's no one right answer because it's a long answer. So it's a long one. This is one I'm going to have to go back and review in the Google Sheet later, which I will talk about in a minute. Let's go to this question. This is a multiple choice. It has an answer key. So now let's click Answer Key. Now notice I have to now choose which one is the right answer because I'm actually going to grade this question. So obviously this first one is the right answer. So I just click on it and it tells the computer this is the right answer. So when my students choose this one, it'll mark it correct. If they choose one of the other ones, it'll mark it wrong. I can also at this time add feedback for them. So if they choose the right answer, it'll automatically tell them at the end, great job. Okay? If they answer an incorrect answer, I'm like, ooh, sorry, that's wrong. Now, here's the cool thing. You will notice that there is a link and a video option at the bottom. if a student gets the question wrong, this is for differentiation. I'm going to mention it now, and I'm going to come back to differentiation later in a whole video. So if a student answers a question wrong, you can have a link pop up. So I might say here, check out this review worksheet number 2 before moving on. Okay? And then I might link to a Google form, a document that's in my Google Docs or in my Google Drive. Or I can add a YouTube video. So if I want to add a YouTube video, I could link it back to an instructional video that maybe this information came from, and I can show them in that video right there. But like I said, we're going to do this in a later one. So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to click Save. Okay, so that's what they're going to see if they get the question wrong. Let's go through real quick and answer these. So this is obviously not a picture of a cell. I'm going to leave no feedback on this one. Remember to click Done after you choose them. Okay, and my answer key for this one. So notice that because it's a short answer, it does leave me the option of writing the correct answer. What information is missing from the diagram above? Nothing. I can also add other ones. So I can add nothing. Nothing is missing, etc. So I can leave a whole bunch of different responses if I'm expecting something different. And then I can mark all other answers as incorrect, and I'm going to click Done. Okay. Now, oh, by the way, this is a great place for if you're doing short answer, if you are a math and science teacher. So for example, let me go back and do answer key. So let's say the question was something simpler where there's like a mathematical response, or like you have to write a symbol. So you might write, the correct answer might be methane, or it might be CH4. Okay, so you could do different things. Or if it was a math question, it might be like, 27, or it might be 3 cubed. That kind of thing. So you could have different variations depending on how the student may have solved the question, as to give you a better chance of getting the question right. Otherwise, it's going to mark it wrong, and then you're going to have to go back and fix it in the spreadsheet specifically for that student. So notice it tells you correct answers, nothing is missing, blah, blah, blah. So it gives you a variety of answers that you can do this. Spelling is going to be a problem, so if they spell it wrong, they may not get credit for it. So let's go and see how this looks as a quiz. Okay, so I'm going to choose my 1A class. Here's the video I'm supposed to watch. And they're trying to explain, I don't know. Which video correctly explains Dalton's law? Not this one. Okay, so now I click Submit. Okay, so now I have not graded this. Okay, because remember, I chose to grade it manually. Now you'll notice that I haven't talked about this yet. Responses has now changed. There's now a number 1. When I click responses, I can see my students based on how they did. So this was an 8-point assessment. This student got 0 points. Okay, my average right now is 0 out of 8. That's not very good. So which question especially explains didn't answer these questions, and it hasn't been released. Okay, here are my responses. So it gives me a breakdown. This is what's really great, is it gives you data to work with based on your questions to see if your questions are submitted. Now notice that I chose 1A, so only 1A questions are going to pop up. There was nothing listed for B because I'm not in the 1B class. Once I'm ready to release, if I click on this student, I can now click Release Score. Once I've gone through and checked everything, I can now go through and release a score. Now the reason it gives me an issue is, so you'll notice the person said, the above video, which is the main theme the character trying to explain? I don't know. We can add individual feedback so I can respond back to them. I can also grade this. I can look at this as a open-ended question and say, okay, this is a pretty good question, pretty good answer. I'm going to give you a 4 out of 5. Okay. This one they got wrong. They're going to get 0 points. If I messed up, I can change their grade here. And obviously, this one doesn't apply because these are not going to be part of their responses. And then at this point, I can now release the score. Okay? All respondents, no, I just want this guy to get it. Send emails and receipt. So now there's going to be an email that's sent out to that person with the responses. Let me pause for a second, and I am going to show you what it looks like from the student's end so you can see what they get. Okay, so here's that email that I got from my teacher. I got a 4 out of 8 on the assessment. Let's view my responses. Now it jumps back to the quiz and it shows me what my total points are. It shows me what I got wrong. Now it will automatically mark this as wrong, but I can see how many points I received for it. Now the teacher can also leave me feedback, but this teacher didn't leave me feedback. In here, here's my feedback. Ooh, sorry, that's wrong. I can also leave more specific feedback. Hey, did you remember to cube the square? That kind of thing. Like I can be specific. Hey, remember, methane has 4 hydrogens, not just 3. So I can talk about that. These are the 1B questions. Obviously, I wouldn't want this to be part of my quiz, but I released everything all at once because it was part of it. So let's close that out. Okay, so now that we're back to our form, we have the basic layout of how we can grade. Now, depending on what you want to do, you may not want to release scores to students. I know that in my class, the best time to release scores are on formative assessments, not summative, meaning I do nows, personal evaluations, self-evaluations, peer evaluations, those kinds of things. I don't release scores when it's a major assessment for a variety of reasons. 1, not all my students take it at the same time or at the same pace. 2, students tend to be absent, and so that could cause a problem. 3, if you give the same assessment to multiple classes, you don't want your block 1 class to be able to share it with your block 5 class, especially on a different day. So major assessments, you're going to want to lock this down so only the students see so that the students don't get their scores released. They'll see it when it appears on, let's say, PowerSchool or whatever your grading program is eventually. You may not want to release everything everywhere. Also keep in mind, under your settings, that under quizzes, I have marked everything. I may want to take everything off and only leave the point values, or nothing, so that when it gets released, all they get is a score. So if I did this where I took everything off and I click save and then I release, back in that email, all they would see would be their general score. Oh, you got a 4 out of 8. That's it. And you can release those immediately. So the students know immediately, oh, hit submit, boom, 10 seconds later, I have an email and it says, I got a 56 or whatever it happens to be. So how much information you want to share with the student will be dependent on what type of assessment you're giving. Okay, so keep those things in mind as you are building your assessment as to how I'm going to release these scores back to the students when it's all done. The best way to use Google Forms is on formative assessments that don't mean a lot. Okay, so hopefully you got something out of this one. As always, if you liked what you saw here and heard, please give the like button and the subscribe button a click. And I will see you soon for the next portion of Google Forms tips and tricks.